Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. And you can now find me on Instagram, and I've called myself maryenglish.co.uk. So if you're on Instagram, and I'm not too sure I'm going to stay on there, we'll see how we do. So it's Mary English, all one word, and then .co.uk is the account that I've set up. So if you're on there, then jump over there and say hello. I have been off social media for probably more than a year now. I was on Twitter, and I just can't be doing Twitter anymore. And I was on Facebook, and then Facebook went and shared every photograph I've ever shared anywhere with everyone on somebody else's account. So I've changed all my settings now, so that can never happen again. But I'm going to do a little bit of Instagram just for a short amount of time and see if it drives me crazy or not. It's almost done that already, but I'm just taking it gentle. So today we're going to do, now we've done progressed charts before, so we're going to do something slightly different today, and it's something that I've never done, so we're going to be learning this together. Now I'm going to be quoting from The Only Way to Learn About Tomorrow, which is part of the series of books by Marion D. March and Joan McEvers called The Only Way to Learn Astrology, and this is volume 4, Current Patterns, Progressions, Directions, Solar and Lunar Returns and Transits. Now on the podcast I've already covered progressions, I've already covered solar return, so that's his birthday every year, and I've covered transits and the upcoming webinar, which you're very welcome to join me on. That's all about transits, so ping me over an email if you'd like to join me doing that. That's on the 15th of February. It's 7 p.m. in the evening UK time. But today we're going to do something that I have never done, and they're called solar arcs. So I am going to read from her book. Okay, so we're within copyright because I'm not reading everything, and I'm only reading a small bit. Okay, so here we go. Solar arc is the simplest and most popular method of advancing a chart. As previously suggested, in order to avoid confusion, it's important to use the correct terminology. The solar arc method of advancing a chart is called direction, or directing the horoscope. It's based on the 1 day for 1 year symbolism. See introduction and lesson 1. At age 25, for example, the sun will have advanced by approximately 25 degrees. By adding the same increment, brackets, arc, to all the planets and house cusps, the entire horoscope advances in line with the motion of the sun. Background. This method stems from the radix system, which was introduced in 1918 by Sefari Al and expanded by Vivian Robson in 1930. Robson states that the only way to maintain the radical relation of the planets is to direct them all at an equal rate and ignore their own, brackets, natural, brackets, orbital motion after birth. This concept is also related to the primary progression, another way of advancing the natal chart, using the rotation of the Earth as a basis of calculations. The radix system is based on the mean motion of the sun around the Earth, which is at a rate of 59 degrees and 8 seconds per year. This approximate yearly motion is also called major arc. The minor arc, by the way, is based on the mean motion of the moon, calculated at 13 degrees, 10 minutes and 35 dars per year. The true solar arc, as opposed to the major arc, is calculated by finding the progressed day in question in the ephemeris and subtracting the natal sun from the sun of that day. The increment found is the actual true solar arc, which will be added to each and every planet and cusp. See appendix page 239. Let me just check what that says. Oh, page 239 is a whole load of mathematics. I can't do that, so we're not going to do that. There are quite a few reasons why the solar arc works better than the major arc. First of all, anything figured specifically for the chart in question is better than using a general mean or average. Secondly, nothing ever moves at an average speed. That's true, especially not the sun, which accelerates in winter to approximately 1 degree 1 minute per day and slows down in the summer to an approximate daily motion of 57 da-di-das. Some general rules. The solar arc has one advantage over every other method of progression or direction. It's very easy to figure the approximate motion in your head, and at one glance can see important years in the natal horoscope, looking forward or backward. Keep in mind that by adding the same increment to every planet and cusp, the relationship of one planet to the other within the directed chart will be the same as in the natal chart. In other words, the planets and cusps will always keep the same distance from each other as they do natally. If your natal sun is 20 degrees Libra, trine your natal moon at 15 degrees Gemini at age 25, by adding approximately 25 degrees to each luminary, that's the sun and the moon, your directed sun will be 15 degrees Scorpio and still trine the directed moon at 10 degrees Cancer. The only aspects to consider are the new ones formed between the solar arc chart and the natal horoscope. When aspecting the solar arc directed chart to the natal, give no more than 1 degree orb in each direction. Remember, 1 degree equals approximately 1 year. But of course, you can see oncoming aspects, future possible experiences or happenings, many degrees ahead, and you can pinpoint things that happened in the past by looking backwards. This is one of the great advantages of the solar arc system. It enables you to judge the validity of a given birth chart at a glance without needing an ephemeris, by looking for past aspects and discussing the possible occurrences that ensued while the client, relative or friend is sitting there right in front of you. When advancing a chart by secondary progressions, which is what I've already talked about, and I'll give you the podcast number, episodes 23 and 24. So to repeat, when advancing a chart by secondary progression, only the motion of the personal planets, especially that of the moon, can be used as timers. The other planets take years to move, as little as 1 degree. The solar arc motion, on the other hand, is consistent, and all the planets can serve as timing devices, as can the directed ascendant and midheaven. Possible but not necessarily correct theories. As you talk to other astrologers about various ways of advancing a horoscope, you will hear many rules that work for sure. Please take it all with a grain of salt and only use that which works for you. Try all new or old theories, including those you learn in this book, but get into the habit of discarding any system that doesn't fulfill its purpose for you. Some astrologers swear that only secondary progressions are worthwhile. Others will only use solar arc and sneer at anything else. We found, and don't forget both of these authors are Aquarians, which I always think is really funny, we have found that some individuals may find one method more meaningful than the other, but since we never know in advance who will do what, we can use both methods and feel that it has enriched our interpretive ability. You may hear or read that it's not worthwhile to look at all aspects formed between the natal and progressed or directed charts, that each person has their own timer, and that the planet and none of the others will tell you when and where and what could occur. We've not found that such a pat answer. True, some people have a key planet whose aspects can be very important key to their lives. That planet could be their chart ruler or the highest placed or most aspected planet, but the other planets, as well as aspects to the angles, are all significant and should be evaluated. Many astrologers will tell you that applying aspects are stronger than separating ones. I hear a lot of people talking about that, and I don't have a brain power for that one. Applying aspects and separating ones, nah. We've not found this to work in actuality. Among our clients, students, friends and family, we find that it can work both ways, and so far we've not discovered a formula as to when, what, where or why. We have found that, as always in astrology, each individual is unique and reacts to his or her own rhythm. Some common sense reminders. When aspecting progressed or directed planets to the natal chart, remember your keywords and apply them just as you would in a natal horoscope delineation. When progressed or directed Venus has advanced to a conjunction to the natal sun, you will join your love and affectionate nature to your inner individuality, your true self. Logic should tell you that what happened or how you might feel. If you're 12 years old, it might be your first crush. If you're 20, you might get married and encounter your first love. It can also signify the birth of a beloved child after the first one. Oh, sorry, not after. It can also signify the birth of a beloved child, often the first one. If you're in your 40s, it may indicate a love affair or a financial windfall. All logical deductions. If this conjunction takes place in the 10th house, it could be a longed for career break, especially if the career is Venusian in nature, arts, music, beauty, business, etc. Beauty business, thingy there. If solar arc Saturn moves from the 6th into the 7th house, it does not necessarily deny marriage, but can indicate your readiness to accept the responsibility or discipline necessary to enter marriage or a serious one-to-one relationship. In other words, use everyday common sense astrology whether you do a natal, progressed, directed or any other kind of chart. I would totally agree with that. Now they continue in the book by using the chart of Rock Hudson, who was born in 1925. I'm not going to use his chart because I don't know an awful lot about him, and I recommend that you get the book to see the demo that they're talking about there. And they start with checking past events by solar arc, going on to the father, the mother, the move to Hollywood, the importance of configurations, homosexuality and horoscope imbalances, Hudson's son, ascendant Hudson's marriage. It's quite in depth, and it's unfair of me to read the whole of somebody's flipping book out, so I shall pause on that part. So to be able to make this work so I can demonstrate it to you, and I'm just about getting my head around it, we're going to use a chart with things that we know already about this person and what did or didn't happen to them at any particular time. And we also need to make sure that we're checking that it is an AA rated chart. So this is a chart that is accurate, because you can't mess about with the chart and do things like this if your chart ain't accurate. Ain't gonna work. Now, just to make it clearer for you, I'm going to put a link to this because I'm allowed to read this one out because it's on the flipping internet, and this is on astro.com. They've got a thing called Astro Wiki, which is marvellous. It's accessible from astro.com. It's under the All About Astrology tab. So on there they explain, I don't know if it's more easily the way they've explained it, but let me read it to you. So solar arc, the distance the sun travels along the ecliptic within a specific period of time. The solar arc direction is a predictive method, but as the two ladies, Marion and Joan, have said, you can go backwards and forwards, so we'll ignore that. It's a predictive method based on the sun's diurnal movement. All the planets and axes are moved by the same amount as the sun moves in one day, which symbolises the passing of 1 year in the life of an individual. The movement of the medium Colli, the MC, is also based on the movement of the Sun, which means the distance between the Sun and the MC always remains the same. The movement of all the other house cusps is then based on the movement of the MC. It's possible to use either the actual distance travelled by the Sun on any particular day, the true solar arc, and the midway is going into blurb there, so I won't read that. Interpolation can be used to calculate, so this is about calculating. Consequently, an easy way to calculate the solar arc is to consider the progressed Sun as moving a year for one day, and then rotating the other planets the same number of degrees. If a solar arc calculation is desired for 30 years after a birth date, for example, simply move the Sun and all the other planets along by 30 degrees from their natal positions. Okay, so that's another way of explaining it. So I hope you're with me. Now, I have to say that I'm doing this live, as far as the recording goes, so I haven't prepared doing this, because what I like to do when I'm sharing, when I'm learning something new with you, is that we're learning it together. So if I make a mistake, that's because I've got something wrong, okay? So don't have a go at me, but we're doing this together just to see what happens. Now, I've told you before that the best charts to use if you're British is the charts of the royal family, because we've got some actual birth times. Hurrah. Now, they're not double A rated, they're A rated. There's such a thing as double A rated, because I don't know, somebody was actually there writing it down on a bit of paper. But King Charles III, who was Prince Charles, is now king, and it's got on Astro Databank that he was crowned at 12:02 p.m. on the 6th of May 23 in Westminster Abbey, London. Now, obviously, we can look at the transits for that day, but we're not going to do that. What I thought we'd do, we'd look at the 6th of May 2023. Can I make a progress? Yeah, I can make I can make a solar chart for that date. You can't do a solar arc chart with a time in it, so it's only the age. So like the previous thing I just read on Astro Wiki, that if you want to look at what's going on for somebody when they're 30 years old, shift everything forwards by 30 degrees. With me? Okay, so let's just start with King Charles. I've got him in my account actually, but anyway, we'll use another version of it. So this is the King of UK, la 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 la. So there's his chart. So I have discussed him before in previous podcasts, because we've got the correct data, and I've done the Queen quite a bit. I've done the Queen probably, what was the Queen, more than the King, but anyway. He's got a 23 degrees Leo ascendant. He's got Pluto in the first house, pretty much conjunct his ascendant. No, not quite. Is it conjunct ascendant? No, it's too far away. Oh, it's 16 degrees is Pluto in ascendants. 23, too far away. He's got Sun in Scorpio in the 4th, Mercury, Chiron, they're all in the 4th. He's got Saturn in Virgo, Pluto in Leo in the 1st, Neptune and Venus in the 3rd. I'm using equal house, checking I've got that as equal house. Yes. He's got Mars and Jupiter in the 5th. He's got Moon in Taurus in the 9th, conjunct his north node, and he has Uranus in Cancer retrograde 29 degrees. I think that's he's only got one retrograde planet. And his mother, the Queen, what was the Queen? Queen Lizzie. She was a sun sign Taurus with a moon in Leo. So they had a pretty good relationship, as good as any relationship can be in the royal family. I wouldn't want to be a member of the royal family. Don't get me started. So that's his natal blah de blah. Now I'm just going to, so I am going to pause, because you don't want to listen to me doing this. You're going to go bonkers. I'm going to do a solar arc chart for the date. So I can only do it for the date, I can't do it for the time, for the date that he was crowned. What I will do is talk you through how to do it. And I've said this before, and you know, there's still quite a few people listening to the podcast that don't use astro.com. They're using Astro Seek. And they're also not using the extended chart selection segment of astro.com. Trust me, this is free. You don't have to pay for this, and it's very, very accurate. I was working with a student recently that was using Astro Seek, and we just doing bog standard transits, and they were talking about a particular part of their chart and a certain date, and I said, well, what degree is the moon in this chart? And they went la la la, and I went, actually, that's not what I've got. What website have you been using? What have you been calculated with it? And they went, Astro Seek. I went, oh no, if you want it accurate and you want it free, for goodness sakes, use astro.com. Anyway, in the extended chart selection, where you've got chart type box, so it goes horoscope 4 sections round, special, ephemeris, pull and astrolog. Under chart type, if you click in that box, it'll come up with a whole load of blurb, and you want to go down to the one, and it's under solar arc direction. Now you've got natal and solar arc direction, and you've got solar arc direction. So we're going to go natal and solar arc direction. Now, just like any progress chart, we need to put the date in the start date box, because in astro.com, any of those things in the chart type box, when you click on it and you click down, they're the ones that have got asterisks on them. You need to put a date in the start date box. So we already know that he got crowned his Jobby Bobby Dobby on the 6th of May 2023, which was last year. So we put that in the date box, and then we click here, show chart. So we've done natal and solar arc direction with a little asterisk next to it. In the start date box, we put 6th of May 2023, and then click here, show chart. Now that looks very much like a transit chart, so I'll just save that. I don't want to save link, bump. Let me save this. So this is King Charles, and this will be obviously uploaded to the podcast, King Charles, and that's his solar arc job. There we go. And if we go back to chart selection, because I'm going to show you the difference between the twos, you can also create a chart that's just solar arc direction, and I want to show you all three. So we got natal chart, solar arc with the directions on it, and then we got solar arc direction just on its own. And again, you need to have a date. Okay, time wise, I'm not too sure how they do the time. I think the time is related to something or other to do with the date, but this is just a solar arc on its own. Solar arc. So, whoopsie. What am I calling that? So I'm calling this a solar arc only. Bing. I'm going to get myself into a right kerfuffle here if I'm not careful. So natal chart, good old king. He's got Leo ascendant, Pluto in the first house, Sun in Scorpio. Now with his solar arc direction-y things, they turn up on the outside and they look very much like a transit chart. So on that, so what you're basically doing, like you have a transit chart, the planets on the outside is going to sort of tell us something. And we'll look at the solar arc on its own, because there's two different things. And the MC gets shifted, the ascendant gets shifted, everything's getting moved by whatever age he was. So he was born in 1948. Oh, Mary, you're going to have to use the calculator now. So he was born in 1948 and he got crowned in 2023. Which means he was 75 years old before he got his job. So, do you know, that's quite late in life, isn't it? To get the job you've waited your whole life for. And I wonder he was so flipping happy when it happened. And what have we got? So, where would we be looking if we're looking... What house would it be? I'm just about to be crowned king. That's a good question. Let's ask... Anthony Louis and his lovely Oreo astrology book, Plain and Simple. See if he's got anything in there about, you know, royal family and kings and queens and stuff. Is there a particular house that's more happy with that? Oh, it's no different from regular astrology. 10th house is the mother, authority, superiors, blah, blah, blah. But he's got in there honour, status, success. Where did I just see that? Yeah, employer or monarch. Okay, so Charles is going from being a prince to being a king, so we've got to have something going on in the 10th house. And so when this happens, his 10th house, as far as progressions go, boggle. There's nothing up there. Okay, very interesting. The ascendant's moved right onto his Venus, and his Venus natally is in the 3rd house. So with all these progressions and stuff, the sun is now Aquarius, that goes into his 7th. So this is me just putting them on the outside of his natal chart. What's Neptune doing? Neptune's now 29 degrees Sagittarius, so 75 years after his birthy poops. What else? So where's the moon? Because I would have thought the moon's in Cancer, conjunct to the North Node. So this is my life. I'm going to do it. Uranus is in the 2nd, and that's to do with money. Does he suddenly get richer? Question. I don't know. Pluto's in the 3rd. I'd say the sun's opposite the ascendant, because the ascendant is, how many degrees we've got ascendant? 5 degrees Leo, and the regressed sun is now 8 degrees Aquarius, so that's in direct opposition into the 7th. I watched a little bit of it on the telly. He certainly looked a happy bunny. He didn't look cheesed off doing that. If you've waited your whole life for something, blah, blah, blah. What is interesting, solar arcs, is now Saturn is conjunct the sun. So she does say in her book about their book, that if the solar arc Saturn is working its way to the 7th, you might be taking close personal relationships more seriously. I would have thought a solar arc Saturn shifting to be conjunct to the sun. Let's have a look. So Saturn is now 20 degrees Scorpio and his sun sign's 22. Yeah, so it's a big responsibility that he's taking, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his 10th. It's an opposition. So if we're looking at aspects, Saturn's opposite his 10th house. So solar arc, progression, direction, whatever the heck you call it, is opposite his 10th house. The progressed MC is exactly conflunked to his natal Uranus, which is 29 degrees, and the progressed MC is, I can't see, where does it say the degrees for the progressed MC? MC arc as a sun, bleh. It's not giving it to me. I'll have to look at it on there. It does look a very late degree to Gemini, but it doesn't actually write. Oh yes, it does, on the right hand side of the chart. There we go, it's written in there. So the ascendant solar arc is 21 degrees Libra 4 jobby bobbies minutes. MC solar arc is 28 degrees Gemini 57 minutes. Oh, well, that's pretty much MC Uranus in the 11th house of friends, sudden happenings, blunky blunky blunk. I would have thought that's pretty significant. So the MC's gone and moved from being in Aries to now being a late degree to Gemini. I mean, was this crowning sudden? The Queen was on her way out, but she wasn't lying in a deathbed for weeks before she died. She sort of was doing less work. She quite planned her retirement rather well, I thought, considering. Not that I'm an expert on these things, for goodness sakes. Solar arc Neptune's doing something to his Jupiter. So his Jupiter is 29 degrees Saggy, and the solar arc Neptune is 29 degrees Saggy. Okay, so Jupiter natally is opposite his Uranus, and then you got, that's all connecting to the MC. So it's a bit sort of fuzzy, isn't it? But what stands out for me, looking at those as if they were transits, which they're not, they're these solar arc things, that at the age of 75, old Charlie is now the 7th house, and he's married, don't forget, he married Camilla, because he was married to Lady Di, and she unfortunately died in a car accident, and he did want to marry Camilla, and she dumped him and married somebody else. It's just a never-ending story. We have got the solar arc Uranus is now in the 2nd, and Jupiter's in the 8th, and Mars is in the 8th as well. But the sun, and because don't forget, the sun's the ruler to his chart, so it's more sort of like he became king and she became queen. So maybe for him, it wasn't just him becoming king, it was the fact that she became queen as well. That's a big job, you know. And that's a partnershipy thing. So maybe he was, I don't know what's going through his head. How would I know? So that's looking at the solar arc like you'd look at transits on the outside. So let's now look at just, because you can create this on its own. There's the only two options they give you on astro.com: create the solar arc chart on its own, or create the solar arc chart with the solar arcy things on the outside. So now this is what the computer's created for us. We've got ascendant 29 degrees Libra. We've got Uranus is still in the 11th, so everything is still located in the same places because everything's shifting in the same way. So it's quite, I must say, it's quite interesting looking at that. Natally, he's got his 5 degrees Leo and 23 minutes, and his solar arc chart thingy on its own is the ascendant is 21 degrees Libra, which means his natal chart ascendant being 5 degrees would fall into his 10th house. So I'm just computing it back to front now. If we were to put his natal chart on the outside, which I don't know how you'd have to do that as a synastry, his ascendant Leo, I'm the king, because Leo likes that sort of thing, ascendant, that would then fall into his 10th. But I don't know if you can interpret a solar arc chart like that, who knows. So everything's still in the same places, because that's what it said on the instructions, that everything moves forwards by the same amount of degrees. So the ascendant was Leo, it's now Libra. So in his 75th year, it's all about relationships. But I just said, because what had happened, he's married her, and now they're king and queen together. Because I don't know if he ever imagined being king on his own, or if he was going to have a queen, because he married a bit later in life. So now we have to mentally do some maths. This is the bit I don't like. So the sun is now in Aquarius, directly opposition, which is what we got in the solar arc chart, opposite the sun sign. The solar arc sun is now directly opposite the natal ascendant in Leo. And it says in there about the aspects changing. So are there any aspects that have changed? Yes. Okay, so if I'm comparing, then now I'm looking at the bottom of the chart. The natal chart, I'm comparing it to the solar arc on its own chart, right? The moon makes a number of aspects. So moon opposition Mercury in the natal, and then moon trine Jupiter, moon trine Saturn, moon sextile Neptune, moon conjunct North Node. In the solar archijobby, the moon is opposition Mercury, but we've got an extra aspect now. We've got trine to Mars. Why is it done that? The moon is now trine to Mars. Because, okay, Mars is only 6 degrees Pisces, while natally it's 20. Okay, that's a maths thing. But I don't see how this solar arc chart is saying anything about his career. Hello, can you see anything different to what I'm seeing? We've shifted it all forward. What does she say in her book? Hold on, let me just go back to the bookie wookie. Okay, so she says the importance of configurations by solar arc, and then brackets all progressions. So now she's talking about this chappie, what's he called? Rock Hudson. At age 20, solar arc Uranus at 11 degrees Aries started to form a T-square in Hudson's chart by squaring Venus, and 3 years later squaring Pluto, which opposes Venus. This T-square would be considered active until age 28, when solar arc Uranus squared Jupiter, which opposed Pluto, though a few years in between less emphasis or challenge might be felt. Well, okay, so with this you've got to go into what the solararchy thing is doing to your natal thing. Well, you can't do that with the solar arc chart on its own, can you? How useless is that? You'd have to do it with your transiting, like on the outside. Okay, so let's look at that again. So if we're looking at the career, I'm now looking at the natal chart. King Charles with his solar arc job is on the outside, right? I just thought it was interesting to create the solar arc on its own, just to see whether or not what they talked about is correct. And it is identical with the placements for everything, so the chart shape's the same, but obviously ascendant has shifted. So let me just illuminate what it is I'm seeing, and you're wondering why I'm waffling. So we've got the solararchy things on the outside of the chart. Okay, so if we're thinking about career, we've got to look at 10th. The 10th house natally is in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. The solararchy Venus is now in the sign of Capricorn, to which he has nothing in his natal chart in Capricorn, but it's not that far off his natal Jupiter. So natal Jupiter is 29 degrees Saggy. Solar archy Venus is now 2 degrees Capricorn, so that's only 3 degrees away. There's a band called 3 degrees. So Venus is illuminating his natal Jupiter in the 5th house of creativity, and Venus is going, yay! Okay, so we have to go look at it like that. And I say the Sun, which is the ruler to his chart, is now opposite his Leo ascendant. So I want to know what the Moon's doing. So the Moon is in the solar arc, 16 degrees Cancer. So that's a cardinal sign, and it's chugging through his 12th. That will form a square, is that right? No, natal Moon is 0 degrees Taurus, hasn't done anything there. Aries MC, so Moon is 16 degrees Cancer, the MC is 13, so I've got a square going on there, and that's his 9th house. Mind you, the other thing that happens when you become king of the UK is you become some sort of head of the religious-y thing, the Church of England. I mean, I don't think it stops the, it's not called a pope, what the heck's he called? Leader of the Church of England is, okay, officially, the leader of the Church of England, the British monarch, which is currently Charles III, is the Supreme Governor, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, who's Justin Welby, is the most senior cleric. The governing structure of the church is based on dioceses, and each presided over by a bishop. I was going to say bishop. Okay, so he's the sort of leader of that. So that would be 9th house. I can go with that. I'm happy with that as an interpretation. Yeah. So that's squaring to something. So that makes it active. So solar arc Uranus is now in Virgo, so we need to be looking at natal things in other mutable signs, which is Saggy and Pisces. So money is the 2nd house, which is ruled by Mercury. Natal Mercury is in the 4th. Nothing's happening there. So I don't think he gets a pay rise being the king. I think the money's going to be the same, but the job's going to be different, and the focus appears to be the 9th, even though the solar arc Venus is making a conjunction to his natal Jupiter. Okay, so that's today. We've been doing a little bit of solar arcs. I know about them, I've heard about them, I knew what they were. I wasn't too sure how to calculate them. I'm not going to go into, maybe there's more solar arc stuff going on when Diana got squished. That was a horrible way for anybody to go, her and the boyfriend. And that would one would assume that would show up somewhere in his chart, but would that be a transit or would it be a solar archy thing? But we can go, we can go backwards, sorry, I dropped the books. We can go backwards or forwards in time with solar arcs, and as Joan and Marion say, we can go backwards. So I'm calling out to you there now, you're listening. If there was something that ever happened to you, because I want to know about past ones, because you can't really predict the future until you understand the past. And anyway, I'm a mutable sign, they live in the past. If you've had something dramatic, big, happen to you, do you want to send me an email and we can just explore your chart and what went on? I mean, I've had a little skip around my chart to see what was going on and what is going on. I could see what's going on at the moment with the solar arc things, like, oh, okay, that made a lot of sense. But as far as Charles goes and his crowning, I mean, that's the day they crowned it. But obviously, I suppose the other date you need to look at is the day the Queen died, because he immediately becomes king at that moment, but he wasn't crowned. So maybe I should have done that as a date for a solar archy thing. Let me just have a quick check before I leave you. She died on the 8th of the 9th, 2022, but thinking about it and having just looked at it, that's only a difference of a day as far as the solar arc goes. So there's not a major thing that's going to be different. The moon is still in Cancer. It hasn't changed sign. And everything else is identical, including the ascendant, because it's just shifting everything by one day for every year of life with the same amount of degrees. I don't know. I'm going to have to investigate this a bit more, and when I've got my head around it a bit more, I'll come back to you. But today we've been exploring solar arcs. And so if you know more about solar arcs, then definitely get in touch. So we've got now that I will be talking about something I know about. So we've got the transit webinar coming up on the 15th. Let me just double check the date there. I've got it right. It is the 15th of February at 7 p.m. UK time. We're going to be talking about transits, and we're going to be talking about transits, so that you can completely get your head around them. Now, I've been using transits for bazillions of years. I know all about how they work, and I absolutely love transits. So if you'd like to join me, the webinar is free. Ping me over an email, mary@maryenglish.co.uk, or go back to last week's episode, and I think I put a link on there. Let me just double check if I did. No, I didn't put a link on there, and I'm not going to put the link on there because I don't know who's going to. I only want people that are listening to the podcast to be clicking links. I don't want somebody gaily going by and joining us. You need to know who I am and what my voice sounds like. But do ping me an email if you'd like to join the webinar, so you've got a bit of time to make your mind up. But it'll be lovely to meet you. If I haven't met you before, it is free. It's 7 p.m. I'm using Skype. Skype's easy. Doesn't matter if you don't have Skype. I'm using a form of Skype called Skype Meet Now. So all you need is a browser, a mobile phone, a cell phone, a Mac, a PC. Doesn't matter what you've got. As long as you can get onto the internet in some way, then you'll be able to get to Skype. Also, don't forget that if you are going to join us, you need to be able to have audio and video or whatever on your device, that's because your camera needs to turn on and your audio needs to turn on. Now, I don't mind if you keep your camera turned off. We had a number of people that joined me on the last one. There was about 30 of us. You can have your camera turned off. That's cool. Don't care at all. If you want to turn it on to ask a question, you're very welcome. But it is an interactive session. I will go blub 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 for about 20 minutes, and then the rest of the session, which is an hour, you can ask a question about your chart, and I'll explain about how transits work. It is quite a tricky thing, transits, because they're not so much tricky as you have to see them in action. And I'll explain all of that in the webinar. So I'm going to waffle now. Do have a lovely week, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye now.